Border crossing to the mainland using facial recognition is on the way. Growth of the Hong Kong economy slows down. And President Xi Jinping is in Peru for the APEC summit. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Starting next Wednesday, Hong Kong, Macau, and mainland travelers can cross borders at Shenzhen Bay Port and Zhuhai's Gongbei Port of Entry using document-free channels. Under the pilot scheme, cross-border customs clearance will be expedited with facial and fingerprint recognition technology. Currently, residents holding valid home return permits can cross the border to and from the mainland through these existing channels. The customs clearance process at the ports requires a collection of fingerprints and facial features. Then travelers can go through the self-service inspection channels, which are similar to Hong Kong's e-channels, by scanning their mainland travel permits as well as their fingerprints and face. That process is poised to speed up further. The mainland's Exit and Entry Administration announced starting next Wednesday, travelers might not even need to scan the physical travel documents. The pilot scheme will be rolled out first at the Shenzhen Bay Port and the Gongbei Port in Zhuhai. They are applicable to Hong Kong and Macau residents aged 14 or above, holding a valid home return permit, or mainland residents holding a valid exit entry permit for traveling to and from Hong Kong and Macau, and those with travel permits for family visits, business, etc. That's also given that they are able to use self-service clearance at the checkpoints already. Under the fast-track clearance process, there will be a camera to scan travelers' faces. After verifying the information, travelers will enter the channel to scan their fingerprint and face. And that's it. This woman said her child is a cross-border student and the ports are very crowded over the weekend. The new measure will make border crossing easier, she said. Authorities said with the upgrade in border inspection technology, the measures can not just improve the efficiency of customs clearance, but also facilitate exchanges between the mainland, Hong Kong, and Macau. But the new measure doesn't cover mainland residents who enter and exit for official purposes. Authorities remind travelers that they should still carry valid travel permits even when using the document-free channels. Hong Kong's economy continued to expand, though at a moderated pace. Real GDP grew by 1.8% year-on-year in the third quarter, having increased by 3.2% in the preceding quarter. The government has decreased this year's GDP growth forecast to 2.5%. In the first 3 quarters as a whole, real GDP grew by 2.6% over a year earlier. The labor market remained tight in the third quarter. Employment earnings continue to record solid growth. The Hong Kong economy is expected to maintain its growth momentum owing to likely further monetary easing by the central bank and the mainland's economic stimulation measures. The government will issue a second tranche of retail infrastructure bonds for subscription in mid-December. The target issuance size is $20 billion. Each lot of bonds is offered at $10,000, with a tenor of 3 years for Hong Kong residents. Interest will be paid semi-annually at a rate linked to inflation in Hong Kong, subject to a minimum of 3.5%. Each person will be allocated up to 100 lots. The subscription period begins on November 26th and lasts until 2 p.m. on December 6th. Residents can subscribe through placing banks or securities brokers. The bonds will be issued on December 17th and listed the next day. The government said the proceeds will be credited to the Capital Works Reserve Fund to finance infrastructure projects. The Consumer Council received a 10% year-on-year surge in complaints about public performances. Objections include denial of refunds after performance cancellations. With the imminent completion of the Kai Tak Sports Park, the city is expecting to host more large-scale concerts and shows. But the Consumer Council has flagged a rising number of grievances related to such events. In the first 10 months of this year, they received 529 complaints, marking an increase of 10% year-on-year. The consumer watchdog said many grievances were related to sudden changes to the lineup of performers and the discrepancy between the actual performances and what they promoted in campaigns. In one case, a complainant spent $2,000 on a 3-day ticket for an outdoor music festival. But on the eve of the performance, the organizers suddenly announced that 3 guests were unable to perform. One of them was a headliner. The complainant said the performer lineup was pivotal to his purchasing decision. Complaining the main act's absence constituted misrepresentation, he sought help from the consumer watchdog to get a refund. But the company quoted the terms and conditions of ticketing, noting that the ticket covered all performances regardless of individual changes, so there will be no refund. The council advises the complainant to seek legal advice for further recourse. The council notes consumers should be prepared that for tickets that cover an entire show, it may be more difficult to request refunds for the cancellation of individual performers. The council said the performance industry should notify consumers of sudden changes and be more flexible. President Xi Jinping arrived in the Peruvian capital of Lima on Thursday, kicking off a diplomatic blitz of South America. He met with Peruvian President Dina Boluart to bolster ties, and both attended the opening ceremony of the China-funded Chancay port. Danny Zhou has more.
President Xi Jinping and Peruvian President Dina Boluart jointly inaugurated the Chancay port via video link yesterday. The deepwater port north of Lima is not only a key project under the Belt and Road Initiative, but also the first smart and green port in South America. Boluarte said at the opening ceremony that China plays a major role in Peru's economy. She noted Chancay Port could be the starting point of a new land-sea corridor that links the Inca Trail to the 21st century maritime Silk Road. This would help promote connectivity and common prosperity, said the Chinese leader. The Hong Kong-listed COSCO shipping ports own 60% of the port. Currently, there are already a number of cargo ships mooring here, and 2 of them are from Hong Kong. Earlier, Xi arrived at the Callao Air Base in Lima. Hundreds of local residents flocked to the streets holding national flags of both countries. Escorted by a cavalry regiment, Xi was received at the presidential palace and held bilateral talks with Boluarte. China is Peru's largest trading partner and export market. She said China is willing to work with Peru in fostering a comprehensive strategic partnership. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Leaders of 21 APEC members that flank the Pacific Ocean touched down in Peru for this year's high-stakes summit. Air Force One landed in Lima on Thursday. Outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden walked out and was welcomed by Peruvian Prime Minister on the tarmac. Biden is due to hold a bilateral meeting with President Xi Jinping on Saturday on the sidelines of the summit, which could be the last one-on-one talk between the leaders of the world's largest economies. Biden is also expected to have a 3-way meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol for setting up a trilateral secretariat to coordinate their cooperation. The Canadian leader Justin Trudeau is also here for the APEC summit with a focus on trade and Pacific Rim ties. Chief Executive John Lee and his delegation called on a local alpaca fibers enterprise. They also attended other meetings to help enhance Hong Kong's international trade. And Hong Kong is slated to sign a free trade agreement with Peru. The Consul General of Peru in Hong Kong said the move will help elevate their bilateral trade and ties, and he welcomed more investments from Hong Kong enterprises. Danny Zhou has a story.
Hong Kong and Peru are now at the final stage of negotiations over avoiding dual tariffs. They are expected to formally sign the Free Trade Pact during the APEC summit. This will include tariff cuts, streamlining a customs clearance process and building a dispute settlement mechanism.
It's beneficial for Peruvian and Hong Kongese people and enterprises. It will give you a clear framework, or we will have rules for access to markets, to protect intellectual property, of course to promote and investments.
Danny Zhou, TVB News.
And still ahead, high-level Sino-US dialogue informed by the China-US Exchange Forum. Donald Trump picks Kennedy to be health secretary despite his anti-vaccine stance. And anti-Israeli clashes at Paris football match. Welcome back. The annual U.S.-China-Hong Kong Forum began today. Diplomats from China and the U.S. both said it is important for the two countries to maintain a stable and responsible relationship. Mo Seng-ai reports.
Under the title Reflection and Forecast, the U.S.-China-Hong Kong Forum kicked off in Wan Chai this morning. The two-day event is organized by the China-United States Exchange Foundation, which was founded by former Chief Executive Dong Chi-hwa.
Let us remember that our goal is not only to address the challenges and complexities we face, but also to explore the vast opportunities for collaboration.
In a video address, China's ambassador to the United States, Stefan, said communication is essential for a stable U.S.-China relationship.
We need to enhance dialogue at various levels and in various fields, eliminating misunderstanding and miscalculation, expand common interests, and foster closer ties between our two peoples. And we are willing to be partners and friends of the United States.
Speaking from Beijing, U.S. Ambassador to China Nicholas Burns said the two governments have made progress in collaboration under U.S. President Joe Biden's administration.
We have many critical differences with China. I want to be equally clear, however, that the United States is not seeking to decouple from China. As we look to 2025, we in U.S. Mission China will work to support the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump to help he and his new team to succeed in this complicated, complex, and yet vital relationship with China.
When asked about his perspectives on the impact of Trump's second presidency on the U.S.-China relationship, a former ambassador of China to the U.S. said it is up to both sides to maintain stable ties.
If we make the right choices, good things could happen. If we make the wrong choice, bad things will happen. So, what kind of a relationship we want to build together?
The second day of the forum will consist of closed-door roundtable discussions, allowing certain leaders and experts to join. Memos 9, TVB News.
And after a resounding election victory, President-elect Donald Trump is laying down the gauntlet even before taking office, challenging the Senate to dare defy him over some of his controversial cabinet nominations, which include Robert F. Kennedy for Secretary of Health and Human Services. This as Trump made his first public speech after his election win, with some celebrity power behind him at gala held by a think tank. Tracy Furness has more.
Star power out in force, with Rocky actor Sylvester Stallone introducing President-elect Donald Trump, who spoke at Thursday's America First Policy Institute Gala in Florida, which was held to celebrate Trump's election victory.
Without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations!
The America First Policy Institute, what a job they've done. But I said, you know, the policy is much more important if we do it for 8 years than it is if we do it for 4 years. So I said, let's do this. Don't worry about your policy. Let's get out and let's win the election. But nobody knew we were going to win it the way we wanted. That was our big one.
Getting down to business, and Trump's cabinet picks are posing the biggest test for Congress. One such pick is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Known for his anti-vaccination stance, this role will put him in charge of an agency that oversees everything from drug, vaccine and food safety to medical research and Medicaid. Kennedy is a former Democrat who ran as an independent in this year's presidential race, but abandoned his bid after striking a deal to give Trump his endorsement. Trump's picks and their subsequent fates will tell a lot about the new power structure in Washington. With Republicans winning enough seats to control the U.S. House of Representatives, the party has extended its control over U.S. government alongside President-elect Trump. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Violent scuffles involving Israeli football fans broke out at the National Stadium in Paris as France hosted Israel in an international football match. Anti-Israeli protests took place outside the venue as French President Emmanuel Macron defended hosting the match, saying France will not tolerate anti-Semitism. David Garrett reports.
Tension before kick-off, even ahead of the fans arriving. Hundreds of police and security lined the entrance of the Stade de France. They were anticipating possible trouble with the match designated high risk by the Interior Ministry. Protests near the stadium where France were hosting Israel in a UEFA Nations League match. Around 4,000 came to demonstrate against Israel's occupation of Gaza as the Israeli football team visited Paris. These people wanted to vent their anger at Israel's wars and at the French government for allowing Israel's footballers to play in the country.
Qui oppose la France à Israël.
This woman says it is a scandal that the French political class supports holding this match and will attend it. They are supporting Israel's policy of genocide in Gaza.
Il fait partie aussi de l'embargo.
Another protester simply said the match should be cancelled to send a message to Israel. About 100 fans from Israel travelled, defying a warning from their own government, and tried to ignore protests as they left the bus and entered. Despite the huge security presence, there were scuffles inside the stadium about 10 minutes into the game. Israeli fans appeared to be attacked, punches were thrown. The incident lasted a few minutes as police broke up fights. Away fans displayed the Israeli flag in defiance. Only 16,000 attended the match, the lowest attendance at the National Stadium for Les Bleus. Many stayed away because of fear of violence. French President Emmanuel Macron in the crowd condemned the fighting, saying we will not give in to anti-Semitism anywhere. After the match, which ended 0-0, away fans seemed content as they left safely. Some Israeli posed for camera crews with the Star of David. The scuffles and protests came 1 week after riots in Amsterdam when Israelis Maccabi Tel Aviv played Dutch team Ajax. There were injuries and more than 60 arrests. Maccabi's next European match was due to be in Turkey but has been moved to Hungary and will be played behind closed doors. David Garrett, TVB News.
With China's approval, the Philippines resupplied living necessities to a military ship that is said by Beijing to be illegally grounded at Renaijiao in the South China Sea. The China Coast Guard announced it allowed a civilian vessel to supply the military ship on Thursday. Chinese Marine officers conducted verification and maintained oversight. The China Coast Guard spokesperson also urged the Philippines to honor its commitments and work with China to keep the maritime situation under control. The Philippine military said they had completed routine personnel rotation and resupply, stressing that it would continue to defend Philippine sovereignty. Back locally, the three-runway system 10-kilometer international race is set to be held on Sunday. The organizers said there will be some clothing restrictions to ensure aviation safety. Runners will complete identity authentication and a security check at Asia World Expo 2 hours before the race. Then they will be allowed to enter the restricted zone of the airport in a special car. They should wear wristbands throughout the race. On race day, temperatures are expected to range from 24 to 28 degrees Celsius. And if the strong wind signal number 3 or a red or black rainstorm warning is enforced at 4:30 a.m., the race will be cancelled. Any emergency messages will be sent by SMS or posted on social media platforms. There will be 2 additional morning airport express trains that depart from Hong Kong Station to the Asia World Expo Station from 5:30 a.m. that day. An auction with a difference will be held in Central this weekend. It's called a post-capitalist auction. Bidders can make offers in untypical and creative ways, including understanding and exchange. Mimo Sengai has more.
Depicting a sand mining scene under Mount Merapi in Indonesia, the artist of this artwork hopes to remind individuals that a balance is important between the existence of humans, nature, and nature's guardians. What messages do you think this oil painting convey? Produced by a local artist, the piece invites the public to consider the subtle expressions of violence in our world. The 2 paintings, as well as 6 other pieces, will be lots for 2 auctions over the weekend. However, the auctions are different from the typical ones. The audience can make offers without money, while artists will be present at the scene to communicate with the bidders to decide who will win the bid. This artist, who submitted an unfinished portrait for the auction show, said he is fond of the concept.
I always feel that as a collector, there's a responsibility. It's not just because you have money to pay for it, but you're also giving support and approval to the artist. I'm waiting for the collector to help me complete it. I'm looking as an artist to kind of challenge and also collaborate with the collector who could help me maybe share a very interesting story or something very personal about themselves so that I find it worthwhile enough to complete this painting.
The creator and director of the auction show first launched the event in Norway before bringing it to Japan, Canada, and now in Hong Kong.
It's the foremost art market in Asia, also one of the most important art markets in the world. All the top auction houses and art galleries here. So I wonder how a post-capitalistic auction would be reacted in this capitalistic market.
Wan said one performance cannot change people's mindset about money, but she wants to remind people the importance of other world values such as wisdom and kindness through this event.
Each lot will allow a maximum of 10 bids during the 2 auctions, and artists have the right to reject all bids. Memos 9, TVB News.
And a reminder before we go that Saturday's news at 7:30 will be broadcast at around 10 p.m. because of special programming arrangements. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.